One of my most favorite sayings in startups is the saying that Mike Tyson said when he was about to go into a fight. They were asking him about the fight, and he said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. It's one of my most favorite sayings because it's so true when it comes to building, growing SaaS businesses. That saying is said to have been inspired by another saying, a much older saying. That saying is, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. That saying was by this gentleman named Helmuth von Moltke. It was from the 1800s. He was a Prussian military commander. And this saying resonated with me even more. This is one of the reasons why on this channel, as I work with SaaS founders, I obsess over your go-to-market plan and your strategy. Because it's not until you actually start executing on your go-to-market plan and strategy do you really go out there to compete in the market and have that first contact with your competition. You have that first contact with the customers. You have your first contact where you have to compete against just general apathy from even adopting a software solution for what you do. And so what sucks the most about this is that a lot of times when you have a go-to-market strategy and plan and you start going through it, if you don't do it the right way, you can lose 12 to 18 months of runway only to realize that we had the wrong plan. The go-to-market strategy wasn't good, it didn't work. This is why I obsess about it, and this is why I constantly think about, well, how do you make sure you structure a plan and a strategy the right way so that as you go into that first contact, you're able to actually tweak that plan and iterate on that plan. Now, you can only do this if you actually break down a go-to-market strategy, which is a very big, broad concept, to 8 key components. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through those 8 key essential elements of a killer and unstoppable go-to-market strategy. I'm even gonna have a bonus one for you. And when you actually implement your go-to-market strategy using these 8 key essential components, you'll actually ensure that not only does your strategy and your plan survive the first contact, you can iterate on it to completely change how you compete in the marketplace. And when you do that, you'll be able to accelerate the growth of your SaaS business. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. It's usually every Sunday with actionable strategies on how to grow your SaaS business with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this channel, if you're part of this growing community of B2B SaaS founders, this unstoppable community, if you're part of my coaching programs, my people, welcome back. It's so awesome to see you over here. Now, one of the things that's been happening that's been super interesting for me is, we're at about 18-month mark of me running this SaaS go-to-market coaching program that I run. And one of the things that's been super interesting is I've met some founders like 12 months ago when we talked, and they were like, no, we're good. We have a go-to-market strategy. And they kind of did their own thing. And 12 months later, not all of them, but a bunch of them came back and was like, hey, listen, I thought we had a plan. It didn't work. We should work together. This sucks because I've been there. Like, I've had a year at ToutApp where we thought we had a plan, but turns out that it didn't survive that first contact, and we didn't realize it, we didn't know how to iterate on it, and it was horrible, which is why I run a program like this. And so one of the things that sucks is you could think you have a plan, a go-to-market strategy, which is a very broad thing, but still not really have one, and it may not work. And the worst part of it is you may not even know that it's not working until 12 months because B2B SaaS is such a slow marination process and it compounds over time. Which is why I learned the hard way, and this is why I teach this in this channel and in my coaching programs, that you gotta break down this concept of a go-to-market strategy to the key essential components, and you gotta make sure you're operating and iterating and tweaking and measuring those components to make sure you are successful. So in this episode, so that you don't lose 12 months of runway or 18 months of runway on the wrong go-to-market strategy, so that you can actually have the right components in place, I'm gonna walk you through each of these components. I'm gonna give you a bonus component if you stay till the end. And when you follow this, you'll be able to actually accelerate the growth of your SaaS business. So if you're excited to dig in to component number 1, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm that really likes it when you do that. And also, should we do green or blue? Let's do green. That'll work well with the blue. This is the tough decisions I make sometimes when making these videos. Okay, so the first component that you actually need to have in your go-to-market strategy is your ICP. Your ideal customer profile. otherwise known as the who. Now, one of the toughest things about ICP, ideal customer profile, or even like something like go-to-market strategy is everyone's like, oh yeah, we've got that. And it's like there's a difference between having that at a surface level and actually doing the work around that to make sure you have an effective version of it. Huge difference between the two. And the more work you put into it, this foundational piece, the more effective everything else is going to be. If you're not clear on your ICP, if you don't really get well defined around it, on like the specific way to define an ICP and stress test it, then all this other stuff will not work as well. And so I always start with this, the first component, essential element that you need for your go-to-market strategy, your unstoppable go-to-market strategy, is you actually need to flesh out your ICP. Biggest mistake I see with founders, especially when I work closely with them, is they confuse the ICP with the TAM. The TAM is the total addressable market. This is everyone in the world that will need your software at some point, and that will be an evolving number and group of people as you grow. The ICP is the subset of your TAM that's gonna get you to this next stage of growth, whatever your next revenue number is. A lot of times founders will say, well, our TAM is $100 gazillion, so here's our ICP. And it's like, not quite. Let's figure out who's most willing to buy now versus later. And so that's one example of what the difference is between a surface level ICP and a much more well-defined ICP. So that's the first thing that you really want to flesh out as part of your go-to-market strategy. Once you have that, the next thing you want to dig into is your value prop. So your value prop is this one sentence definition of what your company does, the value that you offer. A lot of times founders have a tough time actually articulating that. Like if I ask them like, hey, what do you guys do? It's like 10 sentences later, it's like, and that's what we do. And I'm like, that's not a value proposition. That is a sentence and a thesis on all the things you could do, but that's not a core value proposition. Value proposition is super important. One example of that is, our software helps who the ICP is actually blank, which is the result that you give. Like that's a simple way to craft a value proposition, right? Like for ToutApp, which was my prior company that I started, like we helped sales teams generate more pipeline using outbound email. Like that's what we did. And so it's super simple, right? But it took a while to get to that value proposition and really understand it. Value prop also really hones in on your positioning in some cases as well. Positioning meaning exactly where in the market that you sit compared to the competitors that are in the market. When you actually craft your value prop the right way and you're trying to think about your messaging and your positioning, what you're essentially doing is crafting the value prop in a way so that when someone hears it, they can start to understand how you differentiate from your competition as well and how you differentiate in the market. This is super important, right? Because back then, no one else was providing an outbound email platform. Well, there were some competitors that came very quickly, but then it got competitive, but it was still not that crowded. And so at that time, right now, there's 300 outbound email platforms. So right now, if you just say, we help you do outbound, like, oh, kind of like these 5 companies, you have to have a much more defined value prop to differentiate. Back then, it was simple enough. And so you actually have to develop this in a proper way on what's the value prop, what's the positioning, and I was gonna put this here to cross it off. Messaging. This is stuff that a lot of people graze over. They just kind of jump into like, hey, let's send outbound emails or run ads. And what they don't do is the work around the ICP and the messaging to really hone in on that. And that's like the core fundamentals of marketing. The activities aren't the core fundamentals of marketing. Like they matter, but they don't matter as much as this work. And so that's component number 2, element number 2 for your unstoppable go-to-market strategy. You actually have to take some time to flesh out your messaging, your value prop, and your positioning. Once you have that, these 2 things should go into crafting your manifesto. And if you have been following my channel for a while, you'll know the importance of a manifesto. Every company needs to have a manifesto because software companies, I believe, are change makers. They're providing a transformation. They're going in and saying, hey, this is the new way of doing things and we're gonna help you do it and here's why. And you teach them on it. Others call this your strategic narrative. The idea here is that this is this 8 to 10 slide document that really encapsulates who you're solving the problem for, what the messaging and the value prop is, and what the transformation is, and why they should trust you. There's a very specific way to craft these narratives and these stories around your brand, around your company, and you have to do that. And the power in this is when you actually define this, it pulls together the work that you did here and really brings it together into this cohesive story. And from here, what you're essentially going to be able to do is power all the typical activities that you jump to. Meaning, this manifesto can become your lead magnet. This manifesto can provide the messaging for your website. This manifesto can actually be your sales deck. So what you're essentially doing is doing the foundational work on exactly what our core thesis is on how we're going to go to market and differentiate. And you're encapsulating it into your manifesto, and you're using that to turn it into a lead magnet, turning it into your website copy, turning it into your sales deck, turning it into your pitch deck even. Clients in my program do that. And that's why this is super important. And when you do these 3 core essential components, this is essentially your strategy, right? Everything from here onward is going to be your execution. And the biggest problem that I see, especially with the founders that jump to just the execution, the ones that like come back 12 months later and they're like, we lost 12 months of runway, it didn't quite work, what do we do now? What they ended up doing was they spent 12 months churning on the execution, but didn't do the strategy work. And a lot of times we do this. I've been guilty of this as well. We skip over these things because we're like, oh, we don't really need it. We got it. Like, it's fine. And then you jump into sending the outbound emails, giving Mark Zuckerberg money and all those things, and you don't quite get the results. Why? Because you didn't do the foundational pieces of your go-to-market strategy. And when you go out to market and you start competing, and the first contact with the enemy who has done the work, you get obliterated. Except with B2B SaaS, you don't know right away. It takes some time. There's slow marination. So you're getting obliterated, but you don't quite know until 12 months later, and you're like, oh, we got obliterated because we really didn't have a differentiated go-to-market strategy. And that's why this is super important. So these first 3 things, if done right, really sets up your strategy. And then you're able to leverage all this as the foundational pieces and drive that into actually driving your execution. And that's when you get to the next set of things. So the big next thing, the big essential component is your, what I call a Broadway show. And the best way to define Broadway show is essentially what your sales and marketing activities are going to be. Now, what's the difference? So one of the things that rookies make, or not as seasoned teams make, is they get all scatterbrained on what their sales and marketing activities are going to be. They'll go out there and they're like, oh, we should do a blog post. Oh, we should do TikTok. That's kind of cool. We should do Instagram. We should do LinkedIn. We do Facebook ads. And you do all these things and it's very scatterbrained. What you're trying to do is run this big time show in all these different channels. And that rarely works because it's really hard to do. It takes a lot of capital to do. It takes a lot of expertise to do. It doesn't work. You end up being scatterbrained. Instead, what you want to do is create this one beautiful Broadway show, this one show that you run every week. And you strategically run that every single week. And instead of being scatterbrained, you're running a consistent set of messaging every week, and you're iterating on it based on the data, and you're making it better and better and better and better and better. And that's a Broadway show. That's like, the analogy is like, you have one Broadway show, you make it perfect, and then they go all over the country and show it to new people. And that's what you want to be doing with your sales and marketing activities. Instead of creating a brand new Broadway show every single week, a whole different thing, and none of them are good, right? They all suck. And so that's the 4th component on what is your Broadway show going to be? Like, is it your manifesto that you run on a certain channel? Is it going to be LinkedIn, or is it going to be on outbound? You're going to have to pick 1 or 2 of those and really hone in on the manifesto and then run that over and over and over. And when you do that effectively, then you're going to be successful in actually generating the pipeline, getting the users, and then you're going to get the data to really iterate on it and make it better and better. Otherwise, you're going to be trying a new idea every single week. It's going to be all over the place. You won't have the data. There's nothing to iterate on, and nothing will get good, and you lose 12 months of runway. So that's why this component is super important, and that's the first piece of as you start to execute. The next one that you do after you've started doing the Broadway show, you have the strategy, you start to execute, is start to think about channel mastery. And channel mastery is something that is often ignored. Here's the thing. When it comes to B2B SaaS, there's different ways to get attention from your ideal customers, right? What you're really trying to do is take your message and your manifesto, and you're trying to run a Broadway show on specific channels to get the attention of your ICP. That's literally what's going on here, right? Now, the problem is, there's certain ways to get attention. Like, you can do cold outbound. You can run LinkedIn posts. You can run Facebook ads. You can run Google ads. You can do joint webinars, like any number of these things. But the problem is, Each one of these things require mastery. For each of these channels, let's just say LinkedIn, right? You have to know how to structure the posts. You have to know how to grow your following. You have to know how to make sure that it's not just a post that makes people feel good, but a post where people take action and become a lead. You have to do all these things. That requires a few things. One, you have to know how that channel works. You have to know what the strategy is to win in that channel. You have to know what your cadence is going to be, how often you do it, and you have to know what your messaging should be. So that together, when you learn to do that, that's your channel mastery. Now, what ends up happening is a lot of companies or a lot of marketers or founders it's founder-led sales and marketing, what they'll do is they'll try to spin up a bunch of channels, and it becomes impossible for them to master any one single channel. And so kind of like the Broadway show, they become scattered on the channels and on the message, and that becomes terrible. So another core essential element and component is to take the Broadway show, which is your consistent show you're gonna run, and start to turn on one channel at a time so you achieve channel mastery. And you also have a playbook on how to win in that channel. If you're gonna do outbound, have a playbook on it. If you're gonna do LinkedIn, have a playbook on it. If you're gonna do Facebook ads, have a playbook on it. So for example, in my SaaS go-to-market coaching program, we actually give you specific best practices on each of the channels, and we teach you how to actually turn on one channel at a time, what data to measure, based off of the work you did in the program to craft your manifesto, your value prop, and your ICP. So this all connects together. So what you want to be doing is make sure you have a framework to follow to do these core pieces. Okay, so I covered the first 5, and then before I go to number 6 and get to the bonus one, let me just pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? So there's this broad concept of go-to-market strategy or go-to-market plan. But then when you really break it down, you start to see what these core components are and how each of them are so important. You also start to see that they're not random things. They all build off of each other. If your ICP is great, then your Broadway show is going to be phenomenal. If your ICP is terrible and too big and too wide, then your messaging is going to suck, your manifesto is going to suck, and your Broadway show won't work because it won't resonate with anyone. You can't get enough reach. So you can start to understand how each of these components build on each other. And when you actually have all these core components, then as you face the enemy, the first contact, you may not get it right, but you'll at least know which areas to tweak to get better and better and better and to be effective. Are you starting to see the power in this? Are you starting to see the different way to approach this? If you are, can I just get a yes in the comments below? Also, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. Also, if you want to work with me to build out your go-to-market strategy and execute on it based on my 15 years of experience and the 85 plus founders that are in my SaaS go-to-market program, check out my coaching program. The link is below in the video. You don't have to go right now. Let's go to number 6, but smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm as we go into number 6. It really likes it when you do that, and let's dig right into it. Okay, number 6 is success stories. It's so crazy to me how often founders just ignore this. Because when you have success stories, like as you start to get early success from customers, right now, let's just say version 1 of your Broadway show is just you talking about your own experience and what the platform is and the vision and the promise. As you start to get customers and as you're scaling, and even if you're at later stages, a lot of companies don't do enough customer success stories. But if you can capture these success stories and you can put them into your Broadway show, into your manifesto, and you start to mobilize that through the channels you're doing, you can drive 10x impact in your go-to-market machine. Why? Because people trust people. So your ICP is gonna trust the voice and the success of a fellow member of that ICP than you. It's just normal human behavior. And so the more work you do to constantly capture these success stories and incorporate that into your go-to-market machine, the more successful your go-to-market machine is going to be because it's gonna be more believable. It's gonna be more trustworthy. And that's super, super powerful. So that's component number 6. You can never do this early enough. Even if it's your first customer, get them to successful, capture a success story, start mobilizing it. If you are a $100 million ARR company, and there are companies that I coach that are upwards of 100 million ARR, then you should still put more attention to success stories. I bet you're not doing it right now. So that's the power of these success stories. And there's so many different ways to do them. It doesn't matter, just capture it in an effective way and put it into play. As you start to do these things, so you have this strategy and then you have these execution pieces, what ends up happening is you start to generate pipeline. Now, if you're product-led, pipeline tends to be product leads, right? They're signing up for the product, they're doing a trial, whatever it may be. If you're sales-led, then they're actual opportunities, demo requests or discovery calls. And this is where a lot of companies get lost because What's just as important as pipeline building, which is what these things are going to be doing, is just as important is also conversion. And a lot of companies kind of keep that as an afterthought. Whereas one of the biggest components to your killer and unstoppable go-to-market strategy and machine is actually fleshing out your sales methodology. What's also important to flesh out is your marketing methodology, right? And also your customer success methodology. All three of these are super important. Now, what do I mean by methodology? Well, let me give you an example. So let's just say you're product-led. If a trial starts, what is your process to actually nurture that trial, to make sure they get a great experience, to educate them? Do you onboard them with the person? Do you actually identify if they are a high-value account, and then that way you bubble that up to a salesperson? How do you manage that so that they actually have a great and successful trial so they're more likely to convert their credit card? That's part of your sales methodology, if you're product-led. If you're sales-led, then the question becomes, well, how do they request a demo? How do you qualify those leads? How do you make sure that the quality is good? How do you actually structure that discovery call or that strategy call? What do you call that call? How do you follow up with those people? That's also your sales methodology. What's the sales deck, right? Is it your manifesto? Do you tweak it? What do you add to it? Now, we are also running SaaS businesses, so recurring revenue is super important, which means that our customers after the first sale need to be successful. So what's your success methodology? Meaning, once someone becomes a customer, how do you set them up for success? How do you check in with them? How do you run QBRs? You need a methodology for each of these three areas. And if it's an afterthought, what will end up happening is you'll get a lot of leads, and marketing will be like, oh my God, we're doing great, so many leads, but there won't be any revenue close. And you'll be like, I don't know, maybe our salespeople are terrible. But sometimes the salespeople are not the problem. What's really the problem is that you don't have a sales methodology, or you don't have a marketing methodology on defining what's a quality lead, or you don't have a success methodology to retain that revenue. And this is one of the key components that often gets forgotten or is an afterthought, because this stuff is just so much more exciting. We did this blog post, great. How many leads did you get? No one knows. How much revenue did that create? No one knows. But if you can measure these things in the right way and actually define what your methodology is going to be, then that's super powerful. This is also something we cover inside of the go-to-market program. Like, I dig into like, cool, here's how you define a sales methodology. Here's how you actually measure the right data on what should be a qualified lead versus not. Here's how you think about your customer success methodology. Like, these are all super important. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel in these, right? Don't get overwhelmed. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are ways to actually hook into frameworks. And if you have someone that you can go to that can give you a framework, you should go do that. If you know someone that's in sales or marketing or customer success and they'll give you their framework, or you can interview them and go do that. If you want to work with me and I'll give you my framework, that's fine too. But make sure that you have a methodology. That's super important, because if you don't do that, all of this will be for nothing. You'll do all this work, but none of it will convert and won't matter. And you won't know. The worst part is you won't know what was the problem. Was it the people? Like, the market's messed up and your product's not solving a problem? Or your methodology is terrible, you're just not handling these people in the right way. And that's why you actually need to flesh this out and be thoughtful about it. Now, the eighth component, this is the thing, if the ICP is the most important, this is the second most important. And I know there's a whole lot in between and they're all really important, but number 1 and number 8 are the most important for your success. And in fact, the founders that actually lose 12 months of runway on a poor go-to-market strategy, meaning the plan didn't survive and they didn't know it didn't survive, are the people that either screw up on the ICP or the people that actually screw up on this one. That's how important this is. Now, all of these are important. If I were to pick a third important one, it would be number 3, Manifesto, hands down. Manifesto, like, if you don't get that right based off of this, and the reason I put this here is because you won't know if this is any good until you establish these two and run through this. Members in my program, we build manifestos, but it's usually the second or third version that nail it. The first one's like, okay, and we rush that out just so we can start collecting data. And then the third version just like nails it and just like does so well. And that's the process we go through. That's why it's so important. But this, you'll never get to this if you don't have these two things. So what is this thing? You're gonna laugh. It's math, okay? And I could have called this something else. Like, I could have called it data. I could have called it metrics, but it's not that. Like, those are important, but the math is really important. Let me explain why. There's a real math that exists in your go-to-market machine. It's just math. Like, it's not hope, wish, or a prayer. It's math. What is that math? Like, let's just say you want to generate $1 million of new business over the next 12 months, right? You want your go-to-market machine to generate $1 million of new business. Okay, so let's just say your average contract value is 100K. This means that in order to generate that $1 million, you need 10 customers that are paying $100K each. Okay, now in your sales methodology, you know that you have a 20% win rate. Your average, win rate, that's most SaaS teams. They get, some of them are better, world-class, but 20% is average. Kind of weird in sales, but that's what it is. If you only win 20% of deals, in order to get that 10 customers paying you $100K, get $1 million of new business, then you need 50 opportunities. In order to get those 50 opportunities, not every lead that gets generated turns into a real opportunity, a qualified opportunity. Let's just say 10% of any lead that comes in actually is a real opportunity, which is also not a terrible benchmark. To get those 50 opportunities, you need a certain number of leads, and only 10% of leads turn into an opportunity, then you're gonna need 500 leads. So now there's real math here. You need 500 leads. That turns into 50 opportunities. You close 20% of them. That becomes 10 customers at paying $100K each, and then you get $1 million. That is the math behind every single go-to-market machine. Whether you're product-led or sales-led, that math exists. And so often we get caught up on the metrics, which is like, oh, what's our MQL? What's our SQL? Like, those are important. Those are things you tweak, but the math is what matters. Sometimes we get caught up on like, well, what's the cost of acquiring a customer? Like, we got to bring that down. It's like, well, I don't know. How much does it cost? Let's figure out how much it costs, and let's figure out how to make up the difference on the LTV. Math is what really tells you what's working and what's not. And if you don't do the math on your go-to-market machine, just to even figure out like, look, in order to reach this growth target, we need this many leads. In order to generate this many leads, this is how much activity we're going to have to do. If you don't do that math, none of this will work. And this is usually when founders really go wrong. And so figuring out your go-to-market math, figuring out your marketing math, figuring out your sales math, and looking at that equation, and then figuring out, well, how much do we have to do on our Broadway show? Which channels do we have to do? Is it working? What are those conversions across those inflection points? That's what's gonna really make the difference between those who actually succeed and those who 12 months later have burnt a bunch of cash and they don't know what happened. They're like, I don't know, no one wants the product, and you'll never know. And so this is the 8th component, and pretty much the most important, like between ICP and math, like in fact, they're almost tied. You got to do both. That's something that you actually have to own and measure on a consistent basis and make decisions based off of it. And when you do it this way, you don't just have this like hope and a wish and a prayer that your go-to-market works. You have a go-to-market machine. It's a machine that you can measure, and then you have these components, and you can see how each of these components are doing. And based on that, you know what to tweak. And that way you get better and better and better and better and better. And because you're running a Broadway show, you're actually going to be controlled in which channels you're going after. And as you master each channel, you're going to get more success. And as you get more success, you're going to get more success stories. As you get more success stories, and as you improve your sales methodology and you tweak your math, you're going to actually be able to invest more into that machine and raise more money, and then you're going to be able to scale. And that's how it all comes together. And that's the power of breaking down this broad concept of go-to-market strategy to, okay, here are the 8 essential elements to a killer and unstoppable go-to-market strategy. Now, I do have a bonus one for you, and I want, since you're here, which is awesome, I want to give that to you. Before I do that, if you're getting value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that, if you haven't already. Also, if you have thoughts on this, if you just got value from this, like put it in the comments. I just love hearing from all you guys. So the bonus one that you want to think about is actually not an execution thing, but a strategy thing. But so many founders don't think about it as a strategy thing. And that's essentially your pricing strategy. How much do you charge for your product? I remember this one time, ToutApp, my last company, was in trouble. And so I met with 2 of our investors, Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. And we sat down, we talked through where we are in the business, what's going on, what's working, what's not. And they were like, you just need to raise your prices. You raise your prices, everything becomes way better. Like, you're clearly in a market that people want it. And it was so simplistic, but then I went back and I thought about it, and I'm like, we can totally raise our prices. And instead of just doing a per user fee, we added a platform fee, and then we added upsells, and that totally changed the trajectory of the business, which was incredible. And that's something a lot of founders don't do. In fact, inside of my go-to-market program, I've worked with founders where we have nearly doubled their pricing. And this was so scary. Like, we're doubling it, and yet their win rates went up. One of the things that's interesting about pricing is price communicates value, right? And so when you charge higher prices and premium prices, that's one way of differentiating. That's also communicating the value of your product and the ROI they can get. If you charge too low, people may not trust you. So that's like a huge opportunity that's missed in a lot of SaaS companies. And you want to actually think about your pricing strategy holistically. And I have a specific process for this, but I'll give you some pointers. Like, you want to think about, how do you charge? Like, it's not obvious that you charge on a per user basis. Like ToutApp, we sold to sales teams, and we knew that sales teams are huge, so we charge on a per user basis. And then we had other things. Marketo, where Marketo was actually bought ToutApp, and then Marketo was acquired by Adobe, and I was through that whole experience. Marketo sold to marketing teams, and marketing teams don't get that big. And so they charge based on number of contacts, which get huge. So it's not obvious always on how to price these things, how to package these things, and how to have the upsells, and how do you drive, dollar retention rate for your customers. This is all stems down to pricing strategy. The more you charge, the more you upsell, the more your LTV goes up, and the more you can spend on your customer acquisition cost, and the more you can grow faster, and the more you can put in your go-to-market machine. So pricing strategy is one of the key strategy components, not even an execution component, for your unstoppable go-to-market strategy. And the beauty of this is all of this builds on each other, right? The better the ICP is, the better your messaging is gonna be because it's more specific. The better your messaging, the better your manifesto is gonna be because it's focused on ICP with differentiated messaging. The better your manifesto is, the better your Broadway show is gonna be because you're gonna be more focused and targeted and it's gonna resonate more. The better that is, the quicker you're gonna be able to master the channel and get better and better and turn on additional channels. The better you do that, the more customers you get, the more success stories you get. And when you have more success stories, all of this stuff gets better, right? You update it in your manifesto, you show it in your messaging, you tweak your ICP based on who your successful customers are so you get more of them. And as you do that, you actually get better in your sales and marketing process using the data. And if you look at all of this holistically and do the math, then you're gonna be able to tweak this and this and this. All of these things get tweaked based on the math, and it turns into a real machine that you can scale. And on top of that, you put in something like a proper pricing strategy exercise. Oh my God, it changes the game completely. It can 10x your overall machine because you can change nothing in over here. But if you make 2 times more in every deal that you're already closing, you're already changing the trajectory of the growth of your SaaS company. This is why I am obsessed with go-to-market strategy, because this is it. This is the thing. Like when you go out into the market and you have that first contact with the enemy being maybe your direct competitor or well-entrenched players or your customer's attention or just general apathy, this is the thing that helps you win. If you don't have this, you're gonna lose 12 months of runway. You're not even gonna know what happened, and you're not even gonna know how you're gonna raise that next round if you're funded, or you're gonna go out of business if you're bootstrapped because you're like, I can't keep funding this thing, like this is not working. And so this is the most important thing. This is why I obsess so much about go-to-market strategy, and I finally had to do a video where I walk through the core components and elements that make for a successful, killer, unstoppable go-to-market strategy. Now you know what those components are, but what you may not know is how do you build out an ICP? How do you craft your value prop? How do you build a manifesto? How do you run a Broadway show across the key channels? What are the key channels? How do you master each of those channels? How do you collect success stories? What should your sales methodology be? What should your marketing methodology? What should your customer success methodology be? How do you do the math? What do you track? How do you measure? What is the math? And how do you actually revamp your pricing? You may not know these pieces. And this is why I run my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. I have over 85 companies inside of the program that I personally work with. You work with me. That's how the program works. I work with you inside of the program, and I've structured it in a way where you get the most success. I recently interviewed some companies in the program. One grew 330% in the last 12 months of working with me. Another 5x their MRR. Another one is actually growing 200% quarter over quarter. Countless companies have gone on to raise their Series A. I work with a lot of seed stage companies, and they raised their Series A because of the go-to-market machine they built. I've had companies that have raised seed plus rounds based on the growth of their go-to-market. Bootstrap companies, I have a number of bootstrap companies in the program, and they have Kickstarter profitability. This is why I run this program. So if you're interested in working with me to actually flesh these pieces out, you want a framework to follow, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you want to reduce execution risk, you want my 15 years of experience sitting beside you to make sure that you can actually do this effectively, I'll be your coach. I'll walk you through it. I'll give it to you step by step on how to implement these pieces, and I'll coach you through the whole thing. Just go to tkkader.com/GTM for all the information you'll need about the program. It's an incredible program, and we'd love to have you in it if you are a B2B SaaS company. That's all I specialize in. Also, if you got value from this video, just go and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm really likes it, and we just love it too. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, I bring you actionable, actual strategies to grow your SaaS business. From me being a founder, growing a company, exiting a company, and then help exit the company that bought my company for $4.75 billion. I did all that, and now I teach you these principles that I learned from the trenches. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon, so you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. If you're part of a Slack group of fellow founders or a community, please share this video if others will get value. If you feel others will get value, please share it. It'll just mean the world to us. We put a lot of love in these videos. And also, if you're interested in my help in actually building a go-to-market strategy, you don't want to lose 12 months of runway, go check out the coaching program, tkkader.com/GTM. I'll link to it below as well. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK. I'll see you in the next episode.
That would be 1 million.
Yeah, we got it right. Okay. You ready? You ready? Don't put this in the bloopers.